It's the FEMA alert.
Did everybody get it?
Which I still never got.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We begin with roll call. Raymond Camino.
Present.
Rochelle Garcia.
Present.
Judith Gutierrez.
Present.
Bethany Luna is asking for an excused absence. Janie Martinez also asking for excused absence. Marisa Ramirez, present. Rebecca Sepulveda, present. And Alejandro Villarreal. Absent. Okay. Now, I move the motion to excuse members' absences, which is both Bethany Luna and Janie Martinez.
To make the motion? Okay, I'll second your motion.
Motion approved. Moving, instead of following the regular meeting, we will just jump over to other reports so that we can review a convention center update with Mr. Jose Ceballos.
I'll get it.
Is it just you want to minimize that number?
No, we don't have anything written. It's
Oh, okay.
going to be the
Okay,
PowerPoint
great.
presentation. You can also have this one. Jose, pass that out. Thank you.
Do we have one?
So,
Can we have an extra flyer? Or
being
couple-
very stingy with these flyers.
You are. You're not being very generous with that today.
Thank you.
Here's more.
Yeah, grab, if you wouldn't mind grabbing.
So I know I've presented before a couple of times, but I think there's folks in the room who maybe haven't seen the presentation. So I'm going to start more or less from the top. So the project is a public-private partnership between the city and Baskin or Palafox, which is the company that owns the hotel. The purpose of this project is obviously, it's dual, it's largely tourism, is to grow our tourism market. What's, I think all of you know, what's been happening downtown over the last few decades is pretty deteriorated. So this project is intended to be a piece that helps that revival, that revitalization. There's other segments that play an important part in redeveloping and revitalizing downtown, but this particular project seeks to be an important piece in that mix. So the proposal, and you have the aerial before you and your fact sheet. The fact sheet actually is a lot more question and answers that we've had over the last year. We've kind of pulled those together and have those answered. I'll have even more insight and we'll do Q&A on those questions in a little bit. But essentially, the facility would be located right next east to La Posada. It is essentially, it begins at the San Agustin Ballroom, wraps around Casa Ortiz and the 907 property, and then comes back around the parking lot at 907. The facility, the project's still in feasibility. We are still very much engaged now with the financing that's going to be procured, hopefully with Proposition B. We're right in the middle of that, so this November we will learn hopefully favorably that will fall in place. The center, in terms of functional space, is going to land somewhere between 48,000 and 56,000 square feet. Doesn't sound like a huge facility, but usually on what we've learned with these event centers is that they're almost, not quite, but almost one-to-one in function space, then pre-function and support and service space. So what that means is that if you have 50,000 square feet of function space, meeting room, ballroom, you're probably going to have another 50,000 square feet of service corridors, mechanical rooms, foyers, lobby areas, admin space. Early on, as a bit of information, and Blasita knows this, I was pushing back with the architect about the quantity of support space, because it's expensive, right? So you're looking at probably a minimum of $300 a square foot to build this kind of facility so that it's dressed up enough, it's unique enough, pleasant enough. What we learned on during a tour this summer is that every facility we went to McAllen, Corpus, New Braunfels, San Marcos. We looked at Midland, we looked at Galveston too. In terms of research, everybody needs more space. There's never enough storage, never enough service corridors. So just so you keep in mind, because that's important how we get to the 30-some million that will cost to build a new center, right? And it's simple math. So if you do 50,000 in function space, add another 50, multiply that times 300, you're at $30 million. It's essentially a formula that it's simple math. So it looks at bringing obviously a mix of modern in the midst of those two historical homes, Casa Ortiz and 907. This kind of speaks to that. It's kind of blended. It has a courtyard, and you can see it from the aerial. There's a courtyard in the middle of those homes that ties in the new buildings. This is what we're getting back now that we're actually going out and doing many more presentations, is an understanding of the parking. So this is one proposal. The government owns everything north of the flyover. Essentially what you see in the yellow line is what we consider a project area within the yellow line, and then we've been talking to GSA about this property now for a very long time, maybe a year and a half. We're finally getting to a point where they're indicating to us what they would like to see, what's preferred to them. There's various options that we'll come back to, but ultimately we will end up with parking on the riverfront. Okay, so for clarity, all the new spaces is in reddish, pinkish. It's all at street level. There's no function spaces located on the floodplain in the riverfront. The only thing that's located is parking and maybe a dock that's proposed downstairs at the riverfront level to unload for service purposes. So in its finality, we think there will be some version. Right now, the proposal is to come down the down ramp. We have a new proposed ramp, bring you right down. This elevation is still the same. There's actually parking there. This will take you in, this would bring you out, then you would go off the same way. We have begun looking at traffic patterns. We'll continue to do a more comprehensive traffic study once we get to full schematic design in terms of flows. But essentially, our main arrival is going to be down the ramp, is the way we have it right now. Working with the government, there could be other options that they might prefer, and we might have to negotiate and agree to. But essentially, we need riverfront parking for this. We need parking for this to work. So just for clarity, because I know there's folks out there that perhaps are saying, well, some of it's not in the floodplain. So if you're on Zaragoza, you're going to walk right into the facility, the different facilities, different buildings. This is an aerial shot of that. This is an early iteration since maybe the summer. We've been thinking about making this into a potentially five parcel area. I don't know. Right now it has potentially three different rooms. This is in our concept is 21,600 square feet. So what's that size? So that's basically the Civic Center. If you include all its service area, so like the restaurant and the kitchen and the restrooms, that's all that area. The Civic Center building all in itself is about 25,000 square feet. So this is column free, so if you stand, you will be able to see the river. There's going to be there's proposed glazing on both sides, so you can actually see the river from one side to the other. There's that opportunity. 6 meeting rooms are proposed. Right, this concept has 2 small boardrooms and a meeting area and this admin area, reception area in the space. I think before we're all said and done, these connections to what's the cathedral area in the street will change, because I think we want to draw more instead of having a front. Those are my personal observations, but we're going to work through that. These corridors are essentially your foyer areas. There's restrooms here. This is kind of like an entryway that comes from the top from the bottom with an escalator, and it's kind of visible to the whole space right here. And of course the homes. And I'm going through the whole presentation, Rosita and everybody else. I know some of you have heard it before, but I want everybody to have the benefit of that. So how many of you have not been to Casa Ortiz? Everybody has been. So there's really only one one space that I've seen that could be, that could take traffic, and that's the carriage houses, which really are just storage. And that has a concrete floor. And maybe the classroom, right, that's right next to that. But everything else is special event space. It's not high traffic, it'll continue probably in that shape and form. The systems there are all outdated and bad. So mechanical will get updated, electrical will get updated. Most things will just get restored. Needs a new roof, needs your basic systems. But in terms of space, now you're connecting there's about 50 feet between the end of Casa Ortiz and the beginning of the new building. So you have a courtyard now that's a little bigger. So in terms of space, what's the use for Casa Ortiz? Very similar to existing use, except that maybe if we can get that carriage house section into a nice boardroom, that might work well for the center. Or it could be something else, but that's kind of still undefined. The 907 is in much better shape. It has an awesome, what I think could be a nice boardroom upstairs. It has decent open, high ceiling first floor. There's about 3,some hundred square feet in that house. So the way the architects kind of designed it is kind of like creating callejones between an existing historical building and a new building with that's his vision for that. Any questions up to here? Again, some of the same that I've already said. There is a kitchen on site with outdoor catering capacity. Between the different terraces and outdoors is about 10,000 square feet. And of course, the space of Casa Ortiz. Okay, so now the more recent information, which is how is this being financed? So it's multifaceted. So part of it is the city's anticipated commitment, which is somewhere between 31 and 33 million. That includes 12 million in proceeds from the sale of the Civic Center, 4 million in recently allocated capital improvement funds, and then we think Proposition B, the passage of it could potentially raise, the financing that will result from that will raise 12 to 18 million. These will be just hard monies that will be used for brick and mortar essentially. They're all soft costs are paid by Fasken. That's under the proposed the MOU for the future project development agreement. So any studies, all the studies, any costs related to marketing, up to this point, anything that's soft is being borne by Palafox, by Fasken. To date, I think I think there's a slide. We're over $1 million just in fees and costs. Of course, the acquisition of 907 was also part of that. So the split 33-17-4. Now, one of the requests that the city made was that the hotel become part of the network, either Marriott or Hilton. In doing so, the hotel needs some retrofitting and some upgrades. That's probably going to cost, well, not probably, we have an estimate of it's going to cost about 7.1 million. So that's part of the 17. The two properties, the San Agustin Ballroom property and the 907 are right under 3 million. That's about 2.93 we think in value. So the difference is architectural fees, project management, all of that would be involved with the project. Questions here? Could this change? Yeah, it can change. Depends on how much is raised in terms of the financing, the 12 to 18 million. So, but the facility kind of giving you where the scope comes from, right, in terms of size. The ballroom is, everything needs to be, and what we've learned is some of you traveled with us, keep everything as open as you can, as flexible as you can in design so that you maximize the use of those spaces.
Jose, I was just going to ask, is there a plan B in case, and elections is leaving it up to the people, and you don't know how that's going to fare. So is there a plan B to be able to finish this?
Yeah,
there's always a plan B and a C. We're hoping to plan A will obviously
I do too. I'm
just,
sometimes you expect something that and you get disappointed. So that's really the reality, and so, I
Yeah.
mean, that, you know, I just wondered if you.
Yeah, there, at least from our side, you know, there are Plan Bs and Cs. I would think that from the city side, they certainly would have those conversations. The money that's being raised, it's still a lot of money, but it's not, like I've said before, it's not 50 million, it's not 30 million, it's 12 to 18 million to make this project whole. And that's helpful because the city already has some of the money in the bank, so to speak, to make this, to start this project. There's phasing that could occur, where maybe it doesn't happen. I mean, that's, if we're talking about Plan B, there's some money that the city could decide to start phasing. And I don't want to speak for them, but because they have to decide for their own, whether they would face the project and do riverfront, do some renovation in the area. They're already doing utility work, so some of the work is already happening, like when we talked about it, bringing infrastructure to the site, some of the work is mostly done, like on sewer and drainage. Most of that is right next to our site. It was just completed about a year or two ago. They're doing water upgrades right on Zaragoza. So those are things that probably don't have to be in this budget. Now it's being done through utilities. So I guess the first Plan B would be a phasing, where you progressively build up. You could potentially address the sizing, although there really, when you look at the facility, there really isn't much more to trim back. You know, it's not a big site, 50,000 square feet. It's almost half is just a ballroom.
Yeah.
So you still need meeting rooms, so you need another half of that needs to be meeting rooms. The added benefit is that you have two homes that have about 9,000 square feet of flexible special event space. You don't have to build it into the site. You already have those. The county's pledged Casa Ortiz and 907 would be donated. So those are some Plan Bs. The facing, the reduction of space, although I think we're very close to where we need to be in terms of space, in terms of our floor at where we should start. So that we remain competitive, right? Based on what we've seen. Because otherwise, if you just become like a large hotel that has some meeting space, then that might not be sellable for the growing tourism market. So those are, I put some personal observations there, right? But
That's okay, I mean, it's,
I mean, I've already set this in terms of the value of the homes, about 2.93, and then, here, sometimes we forget, but La Posada has given up their San Agustin ballroom in this process, which is not just a revenue generator, but a venue. So it now becomes someone that rents public space for conferences, as opposed to having their own facility. Sometimes we forget that gesture is part of that. We spent more than $1 million right up to date on feasibility and pre-development. This is, and there is a study, it's being loaded up today on the website. So we have the HBS, our hospitality and leisure consultant, has provided, and he was before this committee before, has done an update on what he thinks is going to be the potential economic impact. So that's what he's generated, 18 million in annual recurring. That's direct, indirect, and induced. And then up to more than 650 events annually. Without construction jobs, or in addition to construction jobs, there'll be about 157 permanent full-time jobs between the hotel and the conference center. And so if anybody's interested in having that report, it's not a very lengthy report. It's on a PowerPoint type. I can send it to you all, or you could pull it off the Laredo Conference Center website. So with the financial leveraging that's happening through Proposition B, I've kind of already talked about this, but the increases are 2% to the hotel occupancy tax and 5% to the car rental tax. And that's kind of what we think, and most of this is coming through the city in terms of prospects for the amount to be raised, but that's the amount. The one thing we've learned is when you have these, and it's mostly mentioned by Tom, who's our consultant, the host hotel doesn't keep all the rooms, right? So there's folks, particularly when you're doing regional events, folks stay at other hotels, so there's a sharing. Obviously, the majority will stay at La Posada, but there'll be a sharing with other hotels. Between 25 to 30%, or 20 to 30% are shared in other nearby hotels, or where, if there's a preference. So I think our goal is to become, if things improve in Mexico and other things align, there'll be obviously a growth that will take care of any concern we would have, right? But not having that, we're gonna have to work hard at drumming up these conferences that maybe perhaps didn't look at us because we didn't have a site, we didn't have a host hotel, and get into that circuit. I mean, the staff knows this better than me, but selling this site will be an important piece, so there needs to be a robust marketing program when we take off. Important when you visit with folks, and for you all too, is the conference center is gonna be taxpayer owned. No funding all taxpayer funds are being used in the conference center. Nothing's being used in the hotel side of this. And that's important. Sometimes you hear different people talking about when that distinction needs to be clear, is taxpayer money is not being used on the private. It's the other way around. The private sector is actually contributing land and funding for the project.
That's the biggest concern that I've heard, you know, especially from other hotels. And just some people in the general public.
Yeah,
But you're right, I mean, you know, if that is available, that the people can ask that question and they know where to go to find the answer, it's very, very important.
yeah. So that, as much as the center is going to be connected by a corridor to the hotel,
Yes.
right, an exterior corridor, the conference center is a public space, so any hotel could connect, whether they have small meetings or conferences, they can actually connect. A lot of them, and I presented to the chamber a week and a half ago. They had a gentleman who's coming in from cold storage, building a new facility. And so he's saying, I'm looking for a venue to have 60 to 70 people. He's still looking, like that day he was still looking, he was looking for a place he wanted to come bring him to Siete Banderas. So if you had a site, it doesn't necessarily place them there. You know that they have existing relationships, perhaps in other hotels. I think if and I say this respectfully, if you're in another hotel, you're working for another hotel, you should look at this facility as just an added amenity, an extension to what you could offer, or you're already offering your client base, your consumer. I know I used to do energy work, and our guys always stayed at the Embassy Suites. That's what they did. You know, we had 21 companies under our association, and that was the arrangement. So there was loyalty, there was reasons for that, right? There was loyalty. So if you have a center and you had an event, you could very easily tie in now through a public facility, whether it's next to La Posada or not. And obviously I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible, but there's opportunities for you to maximize if you're in another hotel, a public space. What's next? I think this is my last slide, or second to last, is we have to continue to work on the like-kind exchange. That's kind of the term that we've used for that riverfront parking area with the government. We have to finalize our agreement with the city. We currently are still in an MOU status without a development agreement, so you'll see us move forward with that. And obviously, we're hoping for the passage of Proposition B. And then can get on, after this, get on to schematics, more detail in terms of our plans. And then I changed this morning. I think my last presentation still had spring, but the reality set on me, the architect needs about 6 to 8 months to fully design this. So now we're up, sorry Blasita, we're into the summer.
Oh, I'm not surprised by that at all.
So, this is purely informational. I'm not asking anybody to vote for or against. You make your decision. Just be aware that there is an ongoing effort to educate folks on the potential impact of Proposition B. And there is a website at centralc.com that provides additional information. And of course, I think all of you probably have seen the signs out somewhere. So that's pretty much it. If anybody has questions, I'd love to try to answer those.
Well, I think your presentation answered most of mine.
Okay.
I'm very hopeful and I'm thinking ahead, like, of course, Judy and I have been asking here about more specific things that probably haven't been determined because we're getting ahead of ourselves, but we're a little concerned about just that corridor of historic buildings and how it's gonna impact, the church, the museums, plaza, and, concern about how the historic buildings are gonna be programmed and used, and then also strategies for construction so that they don't impact negatively. Like, we've had construction on Zaragoza Street that has severely damaged the Republic of the Rio Grande Museum. It has, cracked and, the roof almost fell in. It was just really sad. There's a lot of buildings that are affected by movement, especially those old
Yes.
rock buildings. So at some point, I'm hopeful this is moving forward and summer we're going to start. Who will be in charge of constructing this great place, and how could we have some oversight so that some of those sensitivities will be taken into account?
From the Fasken side, we've proposed to oversee the construction as part of the development team. And then we, obviously, the city will have a team that will work jointly with us in overseeing that. I think the model that was used at the outlet shops was very effective. I know some of the team members there, and it was a continuous weekly process. So very specifically, if you know Bill Skeen, he's the project lead for Fasken. I've got a construction background as well, so I'll be involved. And Frank Rafnowski is specifically working with us on the historical home, so he'll be part of that. So there'll be a good set of eyes. We've talked about with Blasita of maybe setting up a working committee that kind of meets. Well, like right now we have a working committee with Blasita. There's 3 of us that meet every week. We have a call, and so maybe keeping that going through construction so that nothing surprises us. I personally have worked on downtown at different projects through Bethany House. Tons of surprises, from cisterns that you find to humidity coming from the soil because you're so close to the river. There's veins there, so we expect that. They're behind Casa Ortiz, and actually, when you're going down to park in the garage, La Posada, if you were to go past that, of course, there's a bluff, but there's an old historical wall section that needs to be protected. It's a pretty impressive wall, frankly. Could even be showcased, I think, if we did it right. So yeah, we're going to be sensitive to that. We're keeping the same the height on the street level. You will not see the building tower past the 907 or the San Agustin, the Casa Ortiz height. It'll remain. The architect's keeping that same line of height. So you're not towering and overpowering the homes. We have off-site work to do, sidewalks that have poles, and we're hoping that we can get that underground. That's not cheap, but I think if we can clean up from Santa Ursula all the way as far into close to Convent as we can, I think that would be helpful. So those conversations have already started, and we haven't cost them out yet, but I think I was surprised and happily surprised to see that some of the sewer infrastructure is a block away from us, like right next to La Posada on the south side, and both drainage too. So to connect to that's a brand new line. I mean, that's a huge savings. The fact that utilities is already replacing sewer on the Zaragoza side, and then soon to come water, that's as well an advantage. We also learned the other day through the TERS meeting here in this room that AEP is pretty much done with their upgrades. They spent $50 million in downtown upgrades to their network. So that too, there's capacity there. And they basically have told us, you just have to give us a space to put your transformer in your property. We have enough capacity to do this. So that's helpful, where you don't have to invest in bringing it from, and they're right there. They're half a block from the site. I'm particularly sensitive to that, particularly the movement. I know where it could happen. We're going to, in this case, the San Agustin Ballroom will come down. It's not historical, but that's a big structure. And we're gonna have to shore up both Casa Ortiz and 907 as we do that. So it'll probably have to be done by hand. A large part of that will have to be done by hand. Any other questions?
I had one question. I noticed the historical homes have a lot of architecture. Is some of the architecture going to be incorporated in the other buildings too, so they all tie in, or that hasn't been determined yet?
It hasn't been determined. Some folks think it's too modern, there's too much metal, the metal's expensive. So it also comes back to numbers. Obviously, we don't want to replicate a 1872 home. I mean, that would look, I don't think most people would enjoy seeing, a replica necessarily. But I think there needs to be the right blend.
A blend tie in, yeah.
I think modern, in our tours, there's all kinds. Like McAllen has a real nice, what seems to me like Spanish with wood mix. San Marcos is more your traditional hotel because it was kind of an extension of the hotel. Corpus has a lot of glass and metal. Of course, Corpus is an entirely different league. But in terms of the look and feel, I think we'll end up, perhaps, the new part will end up.
It's a mix of modern and construction from 40 years ago.
Yeah, and New Braunfels is an old, I shouldn't say old, but it was a prior community center that got expanded. So there's all kinds of variations. The architect, Trahan Architects, likes the metal, the metal theme and look. It'll have to blend. I know that the city manager has at least impressed on me that there has to be an extended discussion about how we blend, particularly on Zaragoza. It's one thing to be in the actual site, in the actual building, but your facade, there needs to be the right blend. And I'm
On
sure
both sides, the riverside and on.
Yeah, so we talked about having two front doors, the Zaragoza and then the south side. How much, it depends on also how much land the government grants to us on the south side, but for sure the hotel needs to, the south side seldom does it get a drive up, you never get a drive up look of the south side. That's gonna change. So if you're arriving on the south side, the back of the hotel will have to look a little nicer, just dressier, maybe with some more greens. But yeah, there needs to be the right blend.
You mentioned that the property in front of the parking lot belongs to the government?
Yes, let's go back to that. This is Bridge 1, Bridge 2. Everything north of this down ramp is government property. And then south of
Inside the yellow outline.
south of this yellow line, which is the down ramp, is city property, riverfront. And actually, just to clarify, there's probably about 300 to 400 spaces, parking spaces down here. Well, we asked the engineer, give us all the spaces from here all the way to the river. He plotted over 800 parking spaces. So we're not accounting for the potential of parking down here where people are parking. There's actually spaces designed. But the government owns north of that down ramp. And then these lighter gray, they're parking lots that at one point in this process, they asked us to build out for them. Actually, this one's already built out, we're just accommodating the gate. And then this, we're extending the current line, fence line down there, which is like a bluff, is probably right here. So we're extending that with a retaining wall and then bringing it all the way over. I can tell you right now, it's gonna look different based on what we're hearing from them. So it may be more condensed, we may end up on this side, but essentially we know La Posada has about 300 parking spaces. We probably should be at 500 plus parking spaces. Now, parking is important, but you have about one block from here, you have about 800 parking spaces. Of course, they're leased to the outlet shops, but you have another 800 or so spaces. So if you really had, 800 cars coming, you have, in the riverfront, you have the parking. So actually you have that. If you had 600 cars, you could fit them all in that area. Of course, if we had it all for the public, for the center. So I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it did.
Yeah.
I was a little concerned because I know what happened in Brownsville at Texas Southwest College, where they started that construction on the wall. If by perchance Trump gets his way and decides to build a wall, is that going to affect the government property or?
Well, those are some of the interests that are being raised now. Is this perception, how much, at this time, is the government ready to hand over all this riverfront
Yeah.
property? Through our work, we
And in another
identified,
port facility, they had to put in a tent city.
yeah.
So they're talking about all the different things that could potentially happen and
So-
why they would need property.
So in the last 90 days, we've really worked hard to get our official request in and get meetings in, so now they're finally coming back. And I say finally, but they're coming back with, well, we have other options we want you all to think through. And that's really where we're at as of this week. So, the good part of the research is that we identified this as public city area from when the city was formed. And that's a lot of space. It looks small here, but when you drive it, it's a big space.
No, it's very.
And that's good, because that's parking or
Potential parking.
potential parking, or it can be a park, green area, riverfront park, which is always, I think that's what's in the planning with the city. Anything else?
It looks like a win-win situation, because especially if you have an event, they have the cathedral, they have the museums, they have restaurants nearby, and hopefully maybe more restaurants and more places will open up and it'll just revive the whole place.
Yeah.
And you also have the plaza in front of the hotel.
So in this process, I mean, we started off as a conference team, but while we're doing all kinds of work, so redevelopment, meeting with bar owners and making sure, stuff is responsive on both sides, public and private. So I think it's a good time for downtown. This isn't gonna fix downtown on its own. Like, it's gonna take arts and entertainment, beautification, people working together, both private and
Infrastructure.
infrastructure. It's gonna take time and effort.
Is the city going to create a downtown development office, or? I heard
Well,
that.
I mean, right now, our TERS board is handling a lot of the infrastructure side of things. And creating a downtown redevelopment office is not something that we've discussed, no. Mm-mm.
So who's looking out for economic development downtown?
I guess it's a combination of folks at city managers, depends. Depends on what comes in the door and which one of us gets it. Ramon and I have been meeting with Jose and Laredo Main Streets and the Downtown Bar Alliance recently. So the city manager's got several of us working on different aspects. And obviously the convention center's my project as well. So it's a mix of folks. Mrs. Guerres is typically the one that handles any 380 agreements, which are the tax abatement agreements that we enter into for anybody that's seeking to receive that, but obviously has the qualifications to meet that, so.
So we started a roundtable, and I think from there you'll see I think it'll graduate to something more formal, but at least we wanted everybody kind of talking and synergizing, because there's a lot of energy. I mean, when you open up a business, I know you get real excited, and I know there's other people and not just excited. I mean, you're real committed financially. It's got to work. So the bar associations kind of tying in now. You're going to see monthly. Their goal is to have monthly coordinated events where they're drawing people back downtown. And there's about 14 establishments that were listed on a recent study from the city that have come in 2018. That's a lot. That's a lot. Of course, most of that are part of the bar scene, but I mean, it's a start. You can't have a restaurant if you don't have people down. So the residential piece outside of this for me, as I wear other hats, is to start bringing residential back, and not so much low-income housing, but market housing, so that folks can live down here and sustain.
People are asking, with regard, what's going on downtown? Well, who do you talk to? How do you get to know what's available or not available? And those are all questions that need to be answered. I don't know who's in charge of that, but you're right. I mean, there's got to be a central
That's been one of
place.
the requests that have come to us, not just through this committee, but also through the private sector, about having someone that can be focused on and address very specific things, but also just in a global manner. So I know it's something that Horacio's been thinking about, but he really hasn't come forward with anything to us in terms of staff yet.
Yeah,
I'm
you
sure
know, the
he's-
availability of square footage, you know, and, you know, you're talking about residential, and then there's business, and there's, you know.
And we used to have that position, actually at community development, Arturo Garcia once upon a time,
Yeah.
was sort of that one person that was a go-to person for all things downtown.
And what happened to that?
Well,
He's
he left the city for a little while. He went to LDF at the time. He also did another military tour of duty, and then he came back to us. And then I don't know if that position got readjusted in that department, but I know that position doesn't particularly exist anymore. So.
So one last thing, we're opening up 907. We're putting, what you saw today in the presentation, like this exhibit, we're making an exhibit space or an info center at 907 for the conference center, so that if you know of anybody that needs to kind of go through this, but we'll have visuals, big boards, they can come by and we can set up a meeting. Or if you want to have a meeting and bring groups, we've set up a room where you can have a meeting there. And if you need us to co-host it, or we can do that there.
So how do you go about getting to set up something like that? Do you
I mean,
call you?
just call me and say, hey, you know, we've got a group we'd like to bring over. I think it also helps to kind of get a sense of the space there, right, where you are. The boards went up this weekend, but because of humidity, the way they assembled them, they didn't stick, so they're actually putting them back up today. So we should be ready to start having folks visit. And this is not just for the camp. This will stay until we see this through, so people know they can come there to get the latest on the. And two, I also think that as we get this redevelopment roundtable, it gives them a kind of a space for them to have a meeting.
Where do you have your offices then?
I work from home.
It would be
I
nice
used to
if
be
they
down
would,
here.
they would open some kind of an office there at the 907. It's, you know, it seems like if you're gonna start using it to be able to have people come in and.
I had an office on 1719 Matamoros for 5 years, right by Mr. Pulida's office. I was never there. I was always out. I used to do a lot of travel, and I love the St. Peter's area. And that's the other piece too, is other areas need, like I said, this is one segment. You have residential. St. Peter's needs also some attention. There's a lot, this is an old part of town. It has a lot of needs. But yeah, so I agree. There needs to be sort of a hub.
Yeah, because I mean, there's
There's a lot happening.
everywhere and nowhere. I mean, you go to the city doesn't particularly have one place where they can give you all that information. So, I think that would be something to
Helpful.
think about.
If there's any community events that are gonna go on this season that maybe you guys could be open for around that same time, that way, if something's going on at the Historical Society or something, then it can also say like, hey, by the way, just a couple
Let's
lots
walk
down,
over, yeah.
it's open, you guys can go and learn about it, that would be kinda nice.
Yeah, we're gonna figure out how we keep it open for a certain time, or certain days, and then the rest can be just on schedule. But just having these exhibits where you can, because where are they gonna park? There's no parking. Well, the fact is there is a plan to address parking. And by the way, it'll be free, at least the way it's proposed, so it's. Thank you all very much.
There's a meter, there's a.
Thank you. Mr. Salas, thank you very much.
Just so that it'll go through.
We will go back to item number 3, the approval of minutes for the September 6, 2018 meeting.
I would like to move for approval.
Second.
Motion passed. Public comments? Do we have any public comments? Then we'll begin with reviewing the year-to-date financial statements. Which I believe is on page 5.
5 and 6, we have the end of the fiscal year, and we also have, up to August. And we also have the collections on page 6. We had a good month of July, and it's reflected on it was not completely yes, July is already dropped in, August is the one that it's not fully, dropped in. Well, and I'm talking because remember, it's for the previous month. So what you see as August here is July, what you see as September is August. That's just how the system is.
But you see, you don't see. I mean,
It's a little bit confusing, but, so the 390,000, in tax collection, that would reflect what was collected for the month of July.
Any questions from anyone on the financials? Thank you, Eileen. Moving right on to the September activity reports. We'll begin with the LCDG Director's Report, Eileen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My report is on page,
Page 7.
is on page 7. And we are working on different events. We have a BC fall, so most of the preparation happened in September. And I also attended, as I was mentioning before the meeting, the TTIA Summit, which is the Texas Travel Industry Association Summit. They give me an opportunity to see what's coming for the industry, see where we're at in terms of not only other CBDs, but attractions and how we are in terms of legislation, not only for Texas, but on a nationwide level. And so the rest of my report, I don't know if you have any questions regarding anything else. I added the upcoming events for October and November, and just the follow-up to the report that I showed last time. This is the month of August. So I gave you last time from January to July. This is the month of August, and we had 2 peaks, one in the first weekend and the other one in the second weekend. These, again, the events that I showed here are events that might have affected. We can't know for sure, but we added all the events that happened on those weekends that might have affected the occupancy for that.
Any questions? Thank you, Eileen. Moving on to the Sales Manager, Joel Vasquez's report.
Morning, Madam Chair. My report's on page 9. Just two of the things that I wanted to highlight was we hosted the Nancy Lopez Scholarship golf tournament, and it was there at the Max. We had about a little over between 60, 70 golfers for the tournament, and so we gave out $1,500 to two students, a female and a male. So one was the female was from United South High School, and the male recipient was from Martin High School. So it was a good event. We're trying to make it bigger, make it better. And then the other thing that I think the whole department is working is on the Black Friday Mexico media and travel agents spam. So all the different groups, the sales team and then the marketing team and the servicing team will all be working. So that's the other thing that I wanted to highlight. I'm not sure if you guys have any other questions regarding my report.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Moving on to the Services Coordinator, Veronica Gamboa's report.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. My report's on page 10. I'm going to highlight in my report, I staffed and we hosted the CLE convention, which is the Combined Law Enforcement Association of Texas. They were here, they brought about 300 attendees for the conference. They had about 150 rooms at La Posada Hotel, so it was a great conference. They hosted at the Laredo Center for the Arts. Everybody was very happy. They left very happy and wanting to come back to Laredo. I don't know if you have any other questions on my report.
This is repeat business. So we had this account probably like 4 or 5 years ago.
4
4 or 5
years.
years, yeah.
So we're seeing.
And prior to that.
And Pride, yeah.
So we see, we're seeing conferences, and this is not the first time, as I mentioned, Cleat had already been here, they came back, and now they came back again, and we see this repeat business. Once we get the conference here, they love it and they wanna come back. We already got calls for a conference that we hosted 5 years ago. We're back in that rotation, and they're already calling us and asking us if we wanna bid and help them bid again. So we see that repeat business with some of our accounts, and we're excited about that.
Yes, that's great.
And do you want to invite?
Oh, yes, and then of course I wanted to invite everybody to our Caminate, and we're partnering up with the Webb County Heritage. Movies on the Patio this Friday. Of course, we're gonna continue to support the 2 different events for the Movies on the Patio. We will not have Caminate on those dates, but this Friday we invite everybody to come. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Caminate will start from 6 to 8. We're gonna have activities for the kids. We'll have Fear, which is a haunted house. We're gonna have some characters there, or dressed up characters, and then we'll go on to the Movies on the Patio, which we'll be promoting. We started yesterday to promote Andrea and I, so that we'll be doing it today as well in KGNS, and we'll continue the whole week until to the day of the event.
Great.
Well, it's good. We'll be there.
Yeah, it's still
Yeah.
El Charro de las Calaveras.
El Chava de las Calaveras. Yes. Andrea dijo que estaba muy chistosa. So,
It's okay. They have
it's
a lot of them.
1965.
To the
Yes.
movies that
Yeah.
Yes, so we'll be working together. I met with Margarita and I told her that, you know, we want to partner up and we want to continue doing this, and hopefully it'll be every year that we join forces.
But it helps, you know, both organizations.
Yes. Yes. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. Moving right on to the marketing reports with Selena Guerra.
Good morning.
Good morning.
First, I'd like to announce that all our media contracts or proposals, amounts have been sent over to City Hall for placement on the City Council agenda for October 15th. So hopefully that'll get us squared away for the next incoming fiscal year. And aside from that, I'm working with staff and specifically Ana Reina and Beatriz, our little marketing team, to put together an itinerary for the Mexican media that's coming in for our familiarization tour. We'll be splitting up the groups between the travel agents and our media partners to show the media, you know, a little tour of Laredo, how Laredo has grown, new shops that have come in, new attractions, and you know, just working out all the details for them. And that's going to be taking place on October the 29th to the 30th.
Just to give you an idea, this event, we've usually done it in Monterrey. So we travel, a group of us travel to Monterrey to have a press conference. And we've done that for several years already. And this time we wanted to like change it a little bit. We've had a great success in Monterrey, but we want to keep everybody excited about the event. And so we're bringing a group of travel agents and a group of media for the event here, so that they can experience all the different things that we have in Laredo firsthand, and they can communicate that to their customers and to their viewers. So that is going to happen, as they mentioned, at the end of this month.
That's good.
Exciting.
Do we know about how many?
We have a limit because of the bus. So there's going to be not more than 50 people, and usually they travel in pairs. So travel agents, yes, travel agents and media travel in pairs. Media, because they usually have the photog and the reporter, and the travel agents, that's just how they work. And so we calculate that we're going to have probably 10 media outlets and the rest of the travel agents. Which we're aiming for the key media in Monterrey, and then the travel agents, we are working, Samuel and Selena are working on figuring out what the best group is really looking at exactly qualifying the group so that we make sure there are potential travel agents that can bring groups to Laredo.
And so it's 2 days, and they're spending the night at one of our hotels?
Yes, so we'll bring them on Monday really early, and we have an itinerary already drafted, and we're taking them several places. We know that we can't take them to every single hotel, unfortunately, or every single attraction. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a mini trade show for them, so that they can meet with all the attractions and meet with most of the hotels and have that opportunity to negotiate. Because that's especially, and that portion of the event is for the travel agents. What they come here is they come to see and negotiate. They want their fee, they wanna make sure that they know the people from the hotel, so that when they have a group, they can call in and they can have that relationship. Exactly. So that we are doing this through a mini trade show where we're gonna have the hotels there and the attractions so that they can have time to negotiate and have time to sit down with them. And the hotels can offer their information. And that way they have an opportunity to speak to every hotel that might be interested, instead of just doing 1 or 2 hotels and then the rest don't have the option. So that is for the travel agents, and then the rest of the time is a tour. It's from, basically they're gonna start Monday really early when they leave Monterrey, and they're gonna end here in Laredo Tuesday about 3, and they go back to Mexico at that time.
And guaranteed they're gonna shop till midnight at Walmart.
We actually scheduled the Walmart run this time because the Walmart, Target, and Ross run, because we know, I mean,
Yes.
we know. So,
I think they kept Eileen out till like 1 in the morning one time.
I was like, I have a husband that's waiting for me. But they can go.
It was just
Find
like,
yourself
you know,
another job. It happens sometimes.
Yeah.
No,
No,
but
and
they
they were
definitely
happy.
want time to shop, and that's time that we do program that time so that they
Yeah.
have
But there's so many Rosses
such a
now and then,
whole,
you know,
so they have a whole experience, a very
Yeah.
complete experience.
So, and they usually would be like, okay, we have time, but this time we know, so we're scheduling ourselves. We're scheduling that Walmart after 10 run, so that they can go and shop and have some time, and so we're adding that for everybody. And then the media is gonna have a different tour, so that they can see some of the new things that we have and that are coming to the ring. So we're really excited. We've done it before, not with the 2 groups, but we've done fam tours with media, we've done fam tours with travel
Well,
agents.
it's good
This
though,
time
I
we're
think that
gonna go.
you do a service, that service counts a lot for them to be coming down, and then they can, go and promote all of that.
Exactly, we want them to see it firsthand, so that when they sell or they talk about it on the media, they can do it with knowledge of
Hands-on experience.
exactly what they saw and what they experienced here in Laredo.
Where are you gonna have them in a trade show?
The outlet. So we are featuring,
Wow.
we're working with the outlet. The outlet is gonna be our location for the trade show. And then
That's good though.
Then we're gonna have like a small press event at the Water Museum. And we're also gonna have, and the final luncheon is gonna be at the mall. So we're kind of like bringing them to the different shopping areas and then attractions.
Very good.
Well, that's good exposure then.
Thank you, Eileen. Moving right over to the digital marketing report with Ana Reina.
Thank you, Karen. More voice and page 13. And the social media likes is on the next page. And we have the statistics for the website. Like they say, we're working on the farm truck for the media. And we work with Beatriz and Selena in the giveaway. This time we have a getaway and a giveaway for the Black Friday. So we start to promote and visit our partners, hotels, restaurants, attractions to make this plan for this and for the next year. We start working on that for the next year. And, and we're working with another agencies for the Agencia de Comunicaciones for Mexico and the ITT from the US to start that's the new fiscal year, so we need to start with the new plan for the digital marketing.
Very good. Anybody have any questions for Ana Reina? Okay, moving over to the Monterrey office. Eileen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Their report is on page 16. And they participated in the Master Grill Tournament. And this is to promote, even though we're not organizing ourselves, but there will be a Big Bad Barbecue event this year, organized by a nonprofit. So we saw it as a good opportunity to invite the Mexican grillers to this event. And we participated, this was a co-op with Travel Texas and the Office of the Governor, the Tourism Office of the Office of the Governor. So we participated with them. It was great for us because our staff was already there, so there was no cost of traveling like other communities had. And it was a very successful event. They also participated in IBTM. This is a meeting planner trade show where we have been participating for several years now. And it has been successful because we've gotten good contacts that have gone to Casa Laredo and then come to our city for logistics seminars especially. And so it's become a good source of contacts for that. The Tourism Marketing and Sales Regional Congress, where they have the opportunity to meet with tour operators and tourism students, so we can get them interested in our destination. So they participate in different events throughout the month, and of course we do our sales visits. Someone continues to do sales visits with different travel agents to get them excited about bringing groups to Laredo and promoting our destination with their different clients.
Okay.
Do you have any questions?
Any questions? Thank you, Eileen. Moving to the other reports, we did already review the convention center update with Mr. Ceballos. Inquiries report. Do we have anything?
I don't know if you have any questions. You can find it on page 18. It's the inquiries report, and as every month, it includes the information of what we have in terms of visitors, where they're coming from, and to our office, and what they request through, also through website, phone, mail. This month, we are actually, we're actually just moved to a new system, so our reports might change a little bit in terms of the inquiries. We kick up the use of our new system, which is IDSS. We're really excited because it allows us to keep more data, report more on the data that we have, and so we started using it, and Casa Laredo is included in that system, so that helps us keep that communication flow in a better way. So we're excited about that. That kicked off October 1st. So you might see a little change on the way the reports look, but it's just because of that new system.
You'll have a lot more information probably.
We come down the line, we should have more information, or should be able to report it in a
From
more
different
friendly way.
angles. Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Eileen. Moving on to the discussion and announcements. Do we have anything to discuss or announce in today's meeting?
Don't forget to go to the movies on the patio.
Yeah, I think that was, our main announcement was coming up, right? It's coming up, movies on the patio. We're excited about working together and featuring everything that downtown has to offer, especially, I'm excited because I love the movies on the patio in October.
Me too.
But it's,
We
I
have
think
coming
it's,
up the scavenger hunt.
there's a scavenger hunt.
For
with
the
the-
museum and the
the American Legion
American Legion.
and the BBC Museum, of course, and then the Heritage Museum will be, the World Heritage Museum will be one of the stops as
Scavenger?
well. Yeah, and it's the first 10 people that go to the different locations and have their icons that are going to be at each location. And they're all actually going to be given by the Fear characters.
Yes.
So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. We're going through the whole Halloween theme. And of course, if you haven't gone able to the page of the movies on the patio, movies on the patios, they're going to be the 5th, the 12th, and the 19th. So, the first 3 Fridays.
Yes.
Of this month.
They're a
So,
lot of fun.
yes,
Yeah.
they seem a lot of fun.
Bringing popcorn.
Well, yes, we'll be having also marble slap there selling because one of our partners, Margarita, was very gracious enough to give us that space for one of our partners that we work with in the giveaway. So marble slap will be there.
Hecho a mano.
Hecho a mano, four vendors of Hecho a mano, and No Te Castigues will be their vendor for food as well. They have their own
We have little
a small snack sale.
chips
Or
and
donuts.
canned cokes. Free wine. Free.
Sounds like
This time I'm not
Jack
gonna be working, so I probably hopefully can make it to have my kids there
Good.
and experience downtown, so.
Oh, great.
Well, thank you all for supporting our book signing
It was fun.
with John Adams, and it was an excellent presentation.
Yes, it was very good. I'm excited about it.
He's
And the
always-
families is taking
He's just a
care, so
good
that's
speaker, a
nice.
good presenter.
He is, but his book is really very, very interesting.
Yeah, he's always had such an avid interest in history.
And it's
So, I remember that about him when we used to work together.
mystery.
I could share the book.
I got excited.
Oh, yeah?
And some family books.
We had a good crowd, I thought, for a while, and then there was that event going on across. With all
It was
the-
actually the
the
cleat.
cleat.
It was the
Then they were all looking to see what we were doing, because, they're right across the street.
Yeah.
We should have gone and invited them over.
Yeah.
Oh, it depends.
Well, yeah, and I think that they just, it was very, very nice, because you could see a lot of people, just congregated in the museum and then at the American Legion. It's interesting to see people walking back and forth. It was nice.
And
The
And
activity
our
was,
weather's been very pleasant for
It
that
has, yes.
these last
Yeah.
couple of weeks. So-
And seeing people walking around downtown because they were going from La Posada to American Legion to Center for the Arts. So.
Yeah.
and there was a lot of activity. That was very, very nice. So, we'll see you at the movies.
I want to thank everyone for coming today, and so we're ready to adjourn our meeting.
Well, thank you.
Need a
I move that we adjourn. If not, we'll keep on going to the next one.